What's up guys, my name's Brandon, and iOS 14 was a huge update for the iPhone and was a big step forward in the right direction for Apple. And before we say hello to iOS 15, I wanted to take a look back at the history of iOS 14 and what each update brought to our devices. iOS 14 brought a ton of new features to the iPhone that we had been waiting on for many years, including the widgets on the home screen instead of just being over on the lock screen and in the Today view. So we have the widgets on the home screen. We also got the addition of the app library over here. So if you swipe all the way over on your screen, you will get access to every application you have installed. This app library also allowed us to hide applications if we wanted to. If we tap on remove, you can now remove applications from the home screen. We also got a new incoming call UI for phone calls and for FaceTime calls, and you can see it does not take up the entire screen like it did in past versions of iOS. We got picture-in-picture on the iPhone for the first time so that we can watch videos while in other applications or on the home screen. We got a new compact Siri, so that also did not take up the whole screen now, just like the incoming call UI. Things just got a lot more compact and small and just more user-friendly here in iOS 14. We also got a ton of changes inside of the Messages application, like the ability to pin certain conversations so you have easy access to them up top. We got the ability to name group chats and change the picture for that group chat. We got the ability to do inline replies and group messages so everybody knows who's talking to who, and just a lot more changes inside of Messages. It was probably the biggest update to Messages ever since iMessage was introduced. Now, iOS 14.1 was a big bug fix update that really fixed up a lot of performance and battery life issues that users faced on the initial release of iOS 14. Now, this did also introduce support for 10-bit HDR playback inside of the Photos application. So when you shot video in 10-bit HDR, you were not able to view it before on 14.0. 14.1 introduced that playback for iPhone 8 and above. We also got introduced to the new intercom feature for the HomePod. iOS 14.2 brought a lot of exciting new changes, including multiple new wallpapers. We also got new emojis. We got the new Shazam music recognition toggle inside of our control center that would allow us to identify songs that we're playing, whether it's in a movie or just out and about. It would notify us and tell us what that song was. We got a whole new look for the music platter in the control center when we haptic press on it. This has been changed, and also this view right here was new in iOS 14.2. We got multiple minor changes to the AirPods, including optimized battery charging for the AirPods Pro. And then there were also several bug fixes that were patched up here in 14.2. iOS 14.3 was an update that brought a lot of features that were promised prior. So for example, we got Pro RAW support for the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max, which was a big feature that was announced during Apple's event, but it was not available on launch of the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max. So that Pro RAW support was added with iOS 14.3. We also saw support added for the AirPods Max. Apple Fitness Plus launched on the day of iOS 14.3 releasing. We also had a big update for shortcuts if you made custom app icons, which is a big thing when iOS 14 came out. And now with 14.3, you did not have to redirect to the shortcuts application before opening up the application you had set as that custom app icon. So that was a big deal for a lot of people who customized their iPhone on iOS 14. We also saw Apple Music add support for animated cover art, so album covers now moved inside of Apple Music, which was a really neat addition. We also got a cleaner control center right here when it came to home icons, so there was a lot of blank home slots before, but those were removed with 14.3. And then we also saw the expansion of app clips, where you can scan a QR code and download an application to your device. So iOS 14.4 was a pretty minor update that brought a couple of changes, including handoff to HomePod Mini, which allowed you to put your phone near a HomePod Mini, but not have to touch the HomePod in order to transfer music. And then we also got the ability to classify Bluetooth type. So for devices that were not made by Apple, you could classify what type of device that Bluetooth product was. And then of course we got several bug fixes in this update as well. So iOS 14.5 is perhaps the biggest point update in iOS history. We got a ton of new features and changes in this update that were actually substantial, and it was pretty surprising to see this many major features come so long after iOS 14 was released. So the first one was unlock with Apple Watch, and this was huge, especially because of everything going on in the world. This would allow you to unlock your Face ID device even if you had a mask over your face, as long as you had an Apple Watch on your wrist. We also saw the introduction of app tracking transparency, which was a massive feature that made national news for months. And this would basically just allow applications to have to ask you before they tracked you around the web and before they, tracked your activity while you're browsing the web and in other applications. So this was a huge step forward in privacy for Apple, and it's still to this day a massive, massive feature. We also got 2 new Siri voices for the first time ever on iOS. iOS and iPadOS gained support for PS5 and Xbox Series X controllers. We finally got dual SIM 5G support after months of waiting on that. We got a ton of changes inside of the music application, including UI changes like the ability to swipe over to put the song in the queue to play next or play last. You can swipe over to the left to delete or download. We got the ability to share lyrics. If you go into the lyrics and tap and hold on them, you now got the option to share that on social media or through messages. We also got the biggest podcast redesign in the history of iOS. So the podcast application just looks a lot better now after iOS 14.5. And then we also got a lot of changes inside of the Maps application, like a whole new updated UI. We got the ability to see guides, so you can see things to do in certain big cities, and we got the ability to report police ahead and report crashes like you can on Waze. The biggest feature in iOS 14.6 was the addition of spatial and lossless audio, which improved quality immensely here on Apple Music, especially when listening through AirPods Max. So you can see here, you could turn on lossless audio, you could change the different types of audio quality that you want based on if you're on 5G or Wi-Fi. Just some nice improvements to Apple Music overall. We saw the introduction to Apple Card Family, where you can share your Apple Card with others. This update also fixed a major bug where your iPhone would lag after a reboot. So that was a big issue on 14.5 that 14.6 resolved, along with various other minor changes and fixes. iOS 14.7 would add support for the MagSafe battery pack, which was new at the time. We got the ability to add HomePod timers inside of the Home application. The air quality index inside of the Weather application expanded to more countries and regions. And then this update also fixed a major bug with Wi-Fi randomly disconnecting. So iOS 14.8 is the final major iOS 14 release, and this was a major security patch update. So it included a fix to the infamous Pegasus spyware that was used to hack into iPhones of Bahraini activists earlier this year. So this was big, and it did also patch a WebKit bug as well. So really just a security update and nothing more or nothing less. And that is the history of iOS 14. So now I'm curious to know, what was your guys' favorite version of iOS 14? Mine would probably have to be iOS 14.5. I just think that was one of, if not the biggest point update in the history of iOS. We just had so many major features added in one update. And the craziest part is that came out 7 months after iOS 14 released. So it's crazy to see that many new features added so long after the initial release of iOS 14. So anyways, now we are moving on to iOS 15 and leaving iOS 14 in the past, although some security updates will still be released for iOS 14 for the next several months, just in case you did not want to update to iOS 15 for whatever reason and just wanted to stay put on iOS 14. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you subscribe for a lot of iOS 15 coverage, including a history of iOS 15 video once iOS 16 is on the horizon. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.